Welcome to the Granite School District 2015 School Community Council training. This portion of the training will be for all members of the School Community Council. For those of you who are continuing your service as School Community Councils members, some of this information may be a little redundant. However, because of a recent state audit and some other new guidance from the legislature and the State Office of Education, we anticipate that the bulk of this information is new and helpful to you in your service as school community council members. As a reminder, our school community council process is ultimately overseen by the Board of Education. The Board of Education truly has an overview and an oversight and a 30,000-foot perspective. They oversee the school district that runs from 21st South to 62nd South, from mountain to mountain, and covers approximately 355 square miles. We have 91 schools in Granite School District, and so the school board is really tasked with hiring and supervising the superintendent, providing policy-making authority, making administrative appointments with respect to school organization. Obviously, they tax you, and ultimately, they do approve all of your land trust plans. The reason school community councils have such an important role in this process, and the reason they have been entrusted with land trust funds in the first place, is because the school board does not presume to know or understand intimately the situations that occur and the academic needs that you might have at each of your individual respective schools. And that's why your role is so important. While they have that 30,000-foot level view, you have the on-the-ground perspective and can really see what's going on in the trenches in your particular school location. Just as a reminder, our land actually stands for something. It stands for learning and nurturing development. So when we talk about school land trust plans or the land trust, institutional trust lands, it's intended to bring us back to that acronym. The reality is that the state of Utah owns millions of acres throughout Utah that are used to support our schools. When we originally were granted statehood, these lands were set aside for the use of school children, and they're scattered throughout our state in almost a checkerboard fashion. And I'm going to show you a map here in a second that indicates where those lands are located. SITLA, which is the School Institutional Trust Lands Administration, they manage these lands and invest the funds from the revenue that's created from them, and then in turn provide those dividends revenue back to our local schools. Obviously, as a school community council, you developed a plan to use the funds to improve academic performance at your particular school location. On average, you can see high school can receive upwards of $65,000, junior high $45,000, and an elementary school $35,000. It is based on population and on a per student basis. As I mentioned with respect to the map, here is that map, and you can see the blue line or the blue checkers throughout the state and mostly the rural areas, and they use those lands and create revenue through grazing rights and drilling and other revenue opportunities. As a reminder, just as we are developing these plans, we are utilizing taxpayer revenue. And while the money is designated for school children, our meetings are open to the public, and we want to be very transparent in the way that we conduct business. As such, we want to make sure that our school meeting schedules and our rosters of our leadership, our school community council members who are representing our communities, is available out on our website and also sent out to our patrons. It's important that we also adopt rules of order and procedure for conducting our meetings so that there is an opportunity for public input and comment, and where all of the members of the school community council have an opportunity to participate. It's important to remember, most of all, that quorum must be present and a roll call vote taken when we're taking votes on financial transactions, particularly when we're funding that plan. When a quorum is by definition 50% plus one of your membership. So at our average elementary school, statute requires that you have 4 parent members and 2 employee members, one of which is the principal, for a total of 6 members. If you only have 3 of your school community council members present for a meeting, then you cannot hold a meeting. You need to have at least 50% plus 1 or 4 members of that council present. In addition to that, when you are actually taking votes on financial decisions, specifically funding your land trust plan, roll call vote must be administered, meaning that we write down in our meeting minutes who voted which way. Bob voted yes, Sally voted no, so on and so forth. Remember, it must be listed on the agenda in order to take any sort of action. So if some sort of conversation derives and you want to discuss that issue further, it's probably okay, but if you're going to actually take some sort of formal action, put it on your next agenda for your next meeting so that the public can have the opportunity to be present if they desire. Now, when we talk about developing the plan, there's a couple of key components. A lot of times when we look at spending money, we just go, well, I'd like to do that with it, or I'd like to do this. And that's not really how we develop plans, nor should we develop our plans that way. What we really need to do is identify our most critical and most pressing academic needs. And we do that by evaluating data. There's lots of data we can pull from, whether it's SAGE or quarterly benchmarks or other tests or assessments that we could review. Once we identify those critical academic needs, we need the whole school community council to come together and identify and recommend specific actions that we could take. We could purchase some technology to address this need. We could provide for some professional development for our teachers to address this need. We could provide for some additional materials or resources that would help us address this critical academic need and write steps for implementation. Once we do that, we're going to be able to determine the best way to proceed to address that issue. This slide, I apologize for the mix-up there. It's clicking a little funny there. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who's famous for writing the Sherlock Holmes mystery series, says, "I never guess. It's a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts." In all of our processes in Granite School District, we always try to assess data and let the data drive the discussion. We don't want to be pursuing an agenda to meet needs that don't exist. We want to identify critical needs through the data assessment process. Once you assess that data and you identify your needs, that will help you in preparing your SSAP. The School Land Trust Plan is a subset of the SSAP. The SSAP is a broader plan addressing all of the school's needs, but you are working on just a portion of that plan, which is the Land Trust Plan. So as you do that and you decide now you've got your identified needs, now look to see if you can actually fund that plan with the money and revenue that you have. You're going to select a goal, and it needs to be a SMART goal. And when we say SMART goal, we mean these things. It needs to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timed. We don't want to have ambiguous goals that are broad, that aren't specific, that aren't relevant to the specific academic needs that we've identified. And certainly because we want to accomplish these goals within the next school year, there's a timed component. Now you have a goal, decide how much money you're going to spend on that goal, and make sure that there's a budget associated with that. Make sure there's enough money, and you could potentially identify any other grant or matching funds that business partners or other interested individuals might be interested in helping with that plan. Make sure that you know what you can and cannot fund. And generally, we can fund anything that's tied to academic improvement and that's tied specifically to these goals. If it's in your plan and it's tied to those components, you can generally fund it. Lastly, what we generally do is we create this plan, and then throughout the whole school year, you're going to be developing a plan for next school year. You're always working on two plans. So you're implementing last year's plan that was created last year, and at the same time, you're creating a plan for next year. So it's important that you're always measuring the progress and implementing that plan that was developed last year. So in the fall, that plan gets submitted. We provide the information to the community. We do a final report on the previous plan from the year before. Again, always working on two plans. It's important that we execute and share that information with the community. There's the principle of good, better, best. It is good that you know what your goals are as school community council members are, that what you're working to accomplish and achieve and which academic needs you are addressing. It's better if your community knows that, if the members of your community are aware of what your plan is because it's been publicized and shared with them. But it's best if our policymakers are informed of how that plan is being implemented, how the money is being used, and how those goals were reached and derived. So every fall we submit a final report. That's a good time for us to go back and publicize to the community what we accomplished. Did your plan accomplish anything? Do you know? So make sure you take time in each of your meetings to not only review the current plan and how it's being implemented, we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but also that you're taking time to let your policymakers, specifically your legislators, know how the money is being used and what kind of results you're getting. This is where this principle of show me the money comes in. This is from a famous movie. Okay, we need to make sure that we're being very transparent. School land trust funds are not a safety net for declining enrollment. What we found in the past is that some of our schools were coming into the fall realizing they had an FTE issue and then amending their plans or spending those land trust funds on, instead of their plan, on creating a safety net for a reduction in FTE at their school location. Land trust funds are supposed to address the most pressing academic need. That's not to say FTE couldn't be that, but is it written in your plan? Did the data support that? Spend the money on your plan. It's important that we spend the money as well. Last year, as part of an audit, it was identified that Granite School District, as of January 2015, had carried over 53% of the money from the previous school year. When our policymakers look at that and say, man, you're done spending half of your money, that makes it very difficult for them to say that we need the money. Okay? So it's important every meeting to look at what you're spending on the current plan that was developed the previous year. So make sure that you are taking time to review the expenditures at every meeting. There should be no carryover at the end of the school year. By and large, the funds should be designated or encumbered by the end of April, and we know that those monies have been spent on the kids in the current school year for which they were intended. Remember, you're always going to get more money next year. There's never been a year where we've gotten less money. The fund is growing. They're investing those revenues wisely, and we expect that those land trust funds will continue to grow for our schools. However, if you do have a situation that does occur, in the past we've kind of frowned upon amending your plan. But if you're not going to spend the money on your plan, you need to amend your plan and develop a plan wherein you can spend the money. Now remember, this does not delineate the responsibility to identify what the most pressing needs are. This does not take away from the responsibility to address those needs. So write a plan considering all the data and anticipate a larger distribution. Be specific to your goals and flexible to your solutions. In the fall, if a more pressing academic need arises that wasn't anticipated, feel free to amend your plan. Remember, this needs to be on the agenda. You need to have a recorded roll call vote, and those will get submitted to the board as quickly as possible, but you should go ahead and proceed. And remember that the USOE is also going to approve those amendments as well. But it's important that I would rather have you amend your plan and spend the money on that plan than not amend your plan and invariably not spend the money at all, because that obviously looks very bad to not only the State Office of Education but also to the legislature. We don't want to have any carryover. The funds, it's the way it's set up and the way this program is established is that we spend the money on the kids that it was designated for, and if we don't spend those funds, we try to carry them over to the next school year to get something bigger and better. We're taking away from the kids in the current school year for which those funds were intended. There's a couple other plans that you need to take into consideration. There's the Reading Achievement Plan, which goes along with the K through reading money that we receive from the legislature. In addition to that, each of our school community councils in our junior highs and elementaries should be reviewing annually They're child safe walking routes, or as they're called on the UDOT website, the transportation website, SNAP plans. Okay, those are something that you should review. Make sure there's not been any construction in your school area, that we're identifying the best and safest walking routes for all of our kids. This information gets submitted to local law enforcement, and they use that feedback to in turn provide crosswalks, crossing guards, and new and improved lighting. If they don't get that information from our schools, they don't make the improvements that we think need to occur. And when I say we, I mean you. You really have some influence with local law enforcement in determining where those crossing guards and crosswalks should be. Those aren't funded by the school district, but we do, as individual school community councils, provide input to local law enforcement as they are the traffic safety experts and determine where those resources are allocated. Last but not least, it's important that you annually review in your school community council the bullying policies and procedure, not only as the district's policies, but also what your local school's policies and procedures are. And especially if there's concerns with those issues. This is a great opportunity for your school to come in as a school community council and identify any potential problems or issues. We want to remind this in the audit that occurred this last summer, this was a major issue of concern. And I would also point out that our school board members, when they want to come visit your school community councils, they don't call me and get a list of this information. They simply go on your school's website to see if it's there as required by law. So on every school website, there is a place designated for the names and contact information to be posted. Proposed schedule of the year. This does not mean you can't add or change your meetings. Just make sure that we're doing so in a timely manner and giving notice to the community, but also that we do have a proposed schedule the second Thursday of every month at 3 p.m. in the media center, whatever that schedule might be. Your land trust plan summary from the previous school year, the one that gets submitted in November, including your accomplishments and how much money was spent. This is important that we, again, share this information with our community and also with our legislators. So it's a good time to send out an email to them and get them that information. Your rules of order and procedure is adopted. We'll discuss that a little bit later. And meeting minutes from the previous 3 years. It's important that we maintain those meeting minutes and we post them as soon as possible. And we'll discuss that a little bit more as well. There's 2 legislative changes that I'm going to send you an email on. One is with the Student Leadership Grant. This was a pilot program and now it's become permanent. You can spend up to $5,000 or 20% of your land trust funds on student leadership programs. And the most famous, which is called the Leader in Me program from Franklin Covey. So I'll send you some information on that. In addition, there's some new digital citizenship requirements, which means that we'll be sending you some extensive information on our the training that we provide to students and to community members to help keep them safe with our filtering processes and procedures. We did have a state audit, and ultimately the sanctions that were imposed were appealed and removed, so we did win that appeal. The biggest thing that came out of this audit is that are these 3 items. Our meeting minutes were not sufficient and are not being posted online. So we have some slides here that will discuss how to improve those meeting minutes. I suggest you look at that information carefully. Please double check your expenditures to make sure they are meeting statutory requirements and make sure that we're spending the money. There can't be any carryover. Last year, our district coming into the fall of last year, I already mentioned our district had over 50% of the statewide carryover balance. Statute and board rule indicate that this should be less than 10%. We are not spending these funds on our plans, which means the state looks at us and says, well, they don't need the money. Well, we clearly need the money. We clearly have academic needs. We need to make sure that our school community councils are reviewing those expenditures on a regular basis and are holding the school staff and principal accountable for the plan that's supposed to be implemented. This is your responsibility. We are giving you that. This is a parent-driven process, and we want to make sure that parents are working with our local schools to make sure those plans get implemented, which means the money is being spent. Now, I'm going to go over this concept again of what we expect with respect to our school community councils. This is intended to be a parent-driven process, and so when we think about parental engagement, we know that parental engagement is the number one key to success for our students. Teacher quality is important. It's not the most important thing. The importance of our principals can't be understated, but it's still not the most important thing. The school location and the quality of the facility are important, but it is not the most important thing. Parents being involved in their kids' education is what is the most important thing when it comes to student success and improved academic outcomes. That's why parent engagement should be infused in everything we do. Any strategies to solve problems or challenges at our school should include a parent engagement element. Parents are driving the discussion, but more importantly, they're driving the solutions. Okay? Our principals have a lot on their plates. It's not fair to place the burden of some of the challenges that our schools face strictly on them or our staffs. We need parents to be involved in resolving some of the challenges that our individual schools face. I'm not aware of any single school in Granite School District that does not have problems with drive-through safety or any issues like that. Our school principals can't be out there 24/7 monitoring those situations. We need parents to be involved in identifying those situations and also being involved in those solutions. That's a very small example because we do need parent engagement discussion in all of our systems, activities, and programs. We need your input. We need to make sure those programs are working for our kids. And that's why school community councils are the perfect place to address aligning our parents' efforts with our school's goals so that we can ultimately work together as a team to get the best outcomes for our students. Now, in our training that we did in person, we actually had a school community council come in and do just a very brief meeting. Obviously, I can't do that for you here, but I just want you to be aware that if you don't feel like your council's working the way it's supposed to, feel free to contact me. I can provide resources to you. I'm happy to come out to your meeting. I'll have my contact information at the end of this presentation. And we want to be here as a resource to you as the school district to make sure your meetings are working the way they're intended to. That is a parent-led discussion, parent-led solutions, and that the principal is there as a guide on the side to ensure that we're following the law. Again, if you do have additional questions or concerns, you can give us a call. I'm going to put my contact information. I do have 3 more quick slides that address some of the points of emphasis, and we call this the chair and the vice chair training. It'll just take another minute or two, so if you want to continue to watch these slides, feel free to do so. The first is we want to make sure that officers are being elected at the beginning of every council year, the first meeting preferably after your elections have occurred. Okay, our chairs and our vice chairs our chair must be a parent, but the vice chair could be an employee. It just cannot be the principal. The principal does vote on the council, but again, this is a parent-driven process, so the chairs and the vice chairs should be the ones developing the agendas and running the meetings. If you have any changes in your rosters at all throughout the year, please make sure that you're updating the communications office with that information, and that will be in the handbook that we're going to provide as part of the email that we send this out in. Additionally, please review the officer responsibilities at your council meetings. The actual handbook itself is only several pages long. It would be appropriate in each of your meetings to review a section of that just to make sure that you're compliant, you're proceeding. Those meetings are running the way that they're intended to be run, again, as parents are driving that process. Chairs and vice chairs are required to have a specific training, which is why we provide these slides. But in addition to that, you're also responsible to make sure that your other council members get trained. So if they don't see this video or they didn't attend the physical training, the in-person training, please make sure that they do so. And take time in your meetings if necessary. The meeting minutes is a point of emphasis. We don't expect your meeting minutes to be recorded or word for word typed up document of all the dialogue that occurs in your meetings. However, there should be a purpose of the meeting along with the date, time, and location. There should be an attendees listed, including those who are visiting. And you should have a brief summary of the discussion, motions, and outcomes of all of your agenda items. This is a great way to follow up on assignments. If you have good quality meeting minutes, you can say, Bob, how did your assignment go? You were supposed to do this. How did that work? And then please make sure to take note of the time, the start and the end, and the length of discussion of each of your items. This should not fall upon the principal. This should not fall upon the chair who's running the meeting or the vice chair. Find somebody else who's willing to take those meeting minutes, and you can elect a secretary if you'd like to do so. Just some tips briefly with respect to your agendas. Just a reminder, have a consistent and standard order of business, whatever it may be. This is just a sample, call to order, approval of minutes, reports, new business. You could have a training section. You could have a report section from your principal. Find something that works for your individual school community council and make sure that you would follow that process. There's going to be other items that are random. A review of your bullying policies only needs to occur once annually. So add that in the appropriate time when that comes up. Regardless, please do not take action or vote on any items that are not on your agenda. These are public meetings. The public needs to have an opportunity to review your agendas to make sure that they have the opportunity to be present if they would like, and they can't do that if it's not listed on the agenda. Last but not least, with respect to the requirements for meeting orders, rules, and order of procedure, you are required to adopt some of those. I would point you to the website, and I'll send a link in the email that I'm sending you to schoollandtrust.org. There is a sample set of rules of order procedure, but you can also create your own. Regardless, they should be simple and consistent. They should be clear. They should outline the parameters of discussion, allow everybody to participate, and should also outline how votes are taken. That concludes our training today. The next slide will have information on how to contact us, and since I'm emailing you this, I'm hoping that you'll realize that's the best way to get a hold of me as well. Either Ben Horsley at the District Communications Office or Mitch Nurden, who is our Resource Development Director, can assist you. I handle mostly the compliance issues and how our meetings are supposed to be structured and run, and Mitch's department reviews all of your plans and makes sure those are compliant with state statute as well. Feel free to contact either one of us if we can be of assistance to you, and we wish you good luck this school year as we work to improve academic outcomes in Granite School District. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your service. Have a great day.